We are ready to go.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I have 7:01 p.m. and I'd like to call to order the 2055th regular meeting of the City of College Place City Council. Will the clerk please take roll call?
Yes. Mayor Hernandez obviously is present. Councilmember Bobbitt.
Present.
Councilmember Cleveland.
Present.
Councilmember Peterson.
Present.
Councilmember Selby.
Present.
Councilmember Sherman.
Present.
Councilmember Trope.
Present.
And Councilmember Nyhagen. She is present. She is muted at the moment. Also, we have City Attorney Ree Colwell, City Administrator Rizzatello, Public Works Director should be coming on soon, but he is not here yet.
Oh, Paul's on vacation, so I'll
Paul is
cover the
not.
sewer lining one.
Okay. City Engineer Robert Gordon, Chief Troy Tamaris, and a crew from the police department are in the council chambers. Community Development Director John Rickard, myself, and Deputy Clerk Holm. We do have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Will you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
under God,
with liberty,
indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
Right, wonderful. Ms. Neisel, will you review the protocol for the virtual meeting discussions, please?
I will. Hang on just one moment. Let me get into the screen share. Okay, so for the council meetings, our discussion protocol is going to be that after the staff presentation of an item, the mayor will request comments from each council member in the order that they typically sit at the dais. And then after each council member's had an opportunity to speak, then we will ask that if you have additional comments to make, go ahead and use the raise hand feature, and the mayor will then call on you if you have additional comments to make after that. Does anyone need help with how to use the raise hand function? Okay, so if you will look at the bottom of your screen, your control panel, click on the button that's on this place where it says participants. It should bring up an additional menu and it'll list the panelists. Down at the bottom of that menu is a raise hand option. And if you click on that raise hand, then you should be able to, it should show for the hosts of the meeting that your hand is raised. And it will look similar to this. Does everybody see that and able to use it?
yes,
Is that a thumbs up?
yes,
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Neisel. It is now time for public comment. Did anyone submit or arrange to speak?
Yes, there is one letter that is included in your packet for you guys to review. And Mr. Donald Pons has made arrangements to speak and should be able to at this time.
Yes, I am here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
Donald.
Hi, Byron. How are you doing? Councilmember Byron. At this time, I have been asked by Chief Tamaris of the College Place Police Department to be a part of a diversity and inclusion panel with the police department, and just having some really good conversations and passionate conversations with him about just the need for this, and this as we see what's going on in our world, and even in our community. I think it's a great idea for us to be out front and be proactive. We are the community, and we want to make sure that we do what's best for our community, in making sure those relations with the people that serve and help protect our community are great. And we need to mend those and get ahead of what has been going on. And I think that Chief Tamaris has been really proactive in that. And I was honored and thrilled to be a part of what is going to happen for College Place. So I look forward to working with him and the rest of the committee on this. And I'm excited. And I think this is a passion of mine. And this is a way that I think that we can serve our community, and that we can start mending relationships and building relationships in a positive manner. So that's really all I have, but it's exciting to be on this committee.
Thank you, Mr. Pons. We are excited to have you join it. And thank you for some very important and timely words. Okay, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. We're approve agenda for July 14th, 2020. Approving the council minutes for June 23rd, 2020. Approve the council minutes from July 7th, 2020 special meeting. Approve the council minutes from June 7th, 2020 workshop. Is there a motion?
Point of order.
Yes, Councilmember Bobbitt?
Point of order. Did we finish our public comment? I thought there was a letter attached.
Yes. It's attached for you to read.
No discussion or comment.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
This is Councilmember Cleveland. I will motion to approve the consent agenda.
And a second?
Councilmember Sherman, I'll second.
Great, thank you. Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, the vote is unanimous. The motion has passed. Thank you. Okay. Exciting times on our agenda. Chief Tamaris will do a swearing in of Officer Eric Adams.
We cannot hear Chief Tamaris.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sir.
Madam Mayor, council members, it's my privilege to swear in our newest officer, Officer Eric Adams. We are accompanied by several family members and friends and officers from the police department. Everybody's social distancing and wearing masks, of course. I'm going to remove mine. I'm going to have Eric remove his, but we're going to stay 6 feet apart so that we can do the swearing in and that you could all understand me. All right, you ready? Raise your right hand. I, repeat your name.
I, Eric Adams,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
and laws
and laws
of the state of Washington,
of the state of Washington,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
enforce the laws
enforce the laws
as a peace officer
as a peace officer
to which position
to which position
I have been appointed.
I have been appointed.
Congratulations. Yeah. You have someone who's going to pay your badge?
Katie.
Come on up. Why don't you step right over here for the camera? Right there.
Congratulations, Officer Adams.
Congratulations.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Anything you'd like to say?
I'd just like to thank. I'd just like to thank everyone along the way and for giving me the opportunity to serve my community.
Excellent. Big round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
We are honored to have you.
All right, it's official. There you go. Thanks, Eric.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you again.
There's cake over next door, so help yourselves. Thanks for showing up.
Right, I hope you're bringing us cake at all of our houses.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
No worries.
All right. Well, I want to give Chief Tamaris a few seconds because he is up next again. All right, Chief Tamaris, you're up with the June Yard of the Month.
Okay, so the annual Yard of the Month, this will be for June, and the recipients live at 25 Southeast 8th Street, and the names are Troy and Christy Eggers, and they have been awarded the June Yard of the Month for the city of College Place, and they have lived in their home for a long, long time, 40 years.
Beautiful.
It is lovely, and I have passed by and seen the sign a few times. It's fun to see it.
It's a fun, this is always a fun thing for our code enforcement officer who gets to deliver the sign. And you know, I used to do it before we had a code enforcement officer, and everybody is so excited and thrilled. I have not had anybody not been really excited. So it's a fun thing to be a part of.
Well, congratulations to the Eggers, and also thanking them for being part of the community. And thank you, Chief Tamaris.
Absolutely.
Okay, moving on to public testimony. We do have a public meeting scheduled tonight on the Southwest Sewer Project. Mr. Gordon, will you present?
Certainly, thank you, Mayor. The Southwest Sewer Project is moving along well, and we are putting together a number of funding packages. One of them happens to be coming from the Department of Ecology. Part of the requirements of that funding package is that we conduct a public meeting and receive public input. So that's what we're doing tonight. I have a slideshow that I've put together. I will just read through that, and at the end we have questions. If you have any questions, let me know what those are, and I'll do what I can to answer those. We're going to run through this pretty quickly. It's a little lengthy, but we did want to hit the environmental issues and some of the project alternatives and some of the funding as well. So Lisa, if you wouldn't mind going ahead, we'll go ahead and start. We'll start with the project description. We have a lift station we're constructing. 1,500 feet of force main. That means we've pushed the sewage up the line through with pumps. And then we have 7,000 feet of gravity sewer as well. Next. This shows you here the approximate alignment along College Avenue coming down near the high school, going west as a gravity sewer to the lift station where it's pumped up through the force main to our wastewater treatment plant. Just kind of gives you the rough idea of what the project looks like. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, the environmental impacts have been reviewed for the project. We're going to go through a lot of the potential impacts. There's actually not a lot that we have been able to identify, but we'll go ahead and just go through these. There are 10 acres impacted, which include the pipeline alignment. The pipeline alignment itself will disturb maybe an acre of currently farmed land, okay? Steepest slope is about 18%. Most of the soil out there, in fact, all of it is farmland. It's divided in a number of different categories and we list them there. There's some that's not prime, there's some prime farmland, there's some prime farmland if irrigated, prime farmland, and then there's some farmland of statewide importance. As far as the grading activity is concerned, for the most part, it's going to be comprised of excavating and backfilling of trenches when they're laying the sanitary sewer pipe. There will be some grading done right at the lift station site itself. We'll be using the native soils to backfill. We will use whatever imported soils we need from a commercial facility. For the most part, we're going to be matching the grades that were there originally. So there won't be a whole lot of impact along the pipeline itself. As far as impervious surfaces are surfaces that shed stormwater when it rains. Really, there's going to be no impact because the pipelines will be backfilled with existing soil. There will be some additional impervious soils at the lift station. This is associated with the roof shedding water and the driveway access through the site. Erosion. During construction, we always want to be careful that we're managing erosion. The contract will be required to follow an approved erosion control and spill prevention plan. Our engineers have actually put one of those together already. The contract will have the option to either adopt that or modify it as they move forward with the project. Barren areas will be restored with hydro seed or gravel. Air quality, most of the air quality, well, all the air quality impacts will occur during construction, and that'll be related to construction activities, the heavy equipment, the water trucks and so forth. Air emissions will be minimized through properly functioning mufflers and equipment, and that again would be a responsibility of our contractor. Thank you. Okay, so surface water, there are two areas where the sewer main crosses, but we're going to actually be placing them under the culverts that go over Stone Creek. In other words, there won't be an impact to the creek itself. We're actually be going below the culverts themselves by boring. The culverts will be retained, protected in place. There is a wetlands map some 3,000 feet south of the project. And the other advantage of what we're seeing here with the surface water is there's the existing lift station. We'll show you this later on another slide. Has potential for overflow from time to time, and right adjacent to that is Stone Creek. So by abandoning this particular facility, we will in more or less be helping to protect the creek long term from spills. Okay, the runoff and drainage impacts controlled by an erosion control plan, and they'll be putting into practice best management practices where necessary. The contractor may need to perform temporary groundwater pumping to lower the groundwater table. And in fact, for the construction of the lift station, this is a for sure. It's pretty deep. We have pretty high groundwater, so they will be pumping a considerable amount of groundwater and trying to control that during construction. Approximately an acre of crops will be removed. Only a small amount of grasses and shrubs do we expect to be taken out. The project is located in sections of either agricultural land or pre-disturbed roadway right-of-way. Again, barren areas will be restored with gravel or native grassland seed. There are noxious weeds out there. I'm not sure I'm going to pronounce these correctly, but common cupina, professor weed, somnier and levier giant hogweed, royal water thyme, and are listed as those weeds that are out there. And they do have the potential to inhabit the project vicinity. There are threatened and endangered species. Yellow-billed cuckoo and bull trout are both listed. Great Basin Gilia, beak cryphanthia, somebody help me there, plume clover, and Sabin's lupine are listed as threatened or endangered. And they also have the potential to inhabit the project vicinity. It is a Pacific Coast flyway migration route, or it's along that area. As far as wildlife impact, none is expected. There are a couple of natural gas lines that will be crossed, and those will be retained and protected in place. As far as noise is concerned, actually the bulk of the construction will be located quite a ways from residential areas, with a few exceptions. And most of it will come during the construction equipment. The post-construction noise from the lift station is not expected to raise ambient noise levels outside of the lift station itself. So we shouldn't have a whole lot of impact there as well. Thank you. Okay, the lift station will have an 18-foot high privacy fence and downcast lighting surrounding it. There may be some traffic impacts. You'll notice later in one of the slides that the gravity sewer actually is placed within College Avenue for the first few hundred feet headed south. So at that point, we expect there will be some traffic control and detours in effect. The remaining portion of that is actually placed outside of the roadway within our right of way as it heads south on College Avenue. And then across the farmlands, obviously it won't be in a road. We don't expect any impacts there. Okay, there were a couple of critical areas identified in the project. You see those circled there, or rectangles, the red rectangles. If you want more information on that, we included the critical areas report in the as one of the exhibits to this agenda bill. Next slide. The current plans show the proposed sewer line being installed within the respective road prisms. As such, this is the summary statement from the critical areas report. As such, there will be no impacts to regulated critical areas by the project, and a critical area permit from the city should not be required. Okay, we had, it's interesting when you talk about alternatives for wastewater collection systems, it's really dictated for the most part by where you're going to place homes in commercial businesses, and also by gravity, where the land actually lies. So as far as alternatives are concerned, when we looked at that, we looked at how much of this should we bite off at one fell swoop. So this is the big picture. You see the existing service area in blue, and then you see new service areas off to the west, and then future service areas below. So all told, when we looked at this and looked at our growth patterns for the near future, or I should say the relatively long future, but not the far future, we came up with an alternative, what we call phase one. Next slide, please. So, and I'm sorry, this is I did want to show you this too. This just shows you in different colors, the different size pipes. If you look at the legend along the right side, you have 8-inch, 10-inch, 12-inch, 15-inch, 18-inch, and force main pipes that have been sized, collection lines have been sized for that whole area. Okay, next slide. So here's what we ended up with in terms of what we decided to do. You'll see the line coming down College Avenue. The lift station number 6 is the one that's being abandoned, and that's one that's pretty near to Stone Creek and could possibly overflow into the creek if it had a problem. Then it heads across to the, after it comes down College Avenue, it heads across the farmland, and it heads all the way down to the regional lift station, and then from there it's pumped up to the force main. This is an earlier figure, and it's been changed a little bit in final design, and you'll see that in just a minute. Next slide, please. Okay, here is a slide from the current 90% plans that have been submitted to the Department of Ecology, and plans that the city has also been reviewing and commenting on. You'll see at the upper right-hand corner of the slide, that's those first 2 sheets or so, maybe even the first one there, you'll see the water line is actually within College Avenue. That's where you're going to have your traffic impacts when it's being constructed. Shortly thereafter, it swings out of the traveled way into the right of way, so there won't be any traffic impacts, and then west on across the farmlands to the lift station, which is at kind of a square area. Then it goes up Teal Road, goes to Montjonier, goes through Montjonier to Owens Road. And I should mention there will be some impacts to Montjonier as well during construction in that area. Again, there will have to be rerouting and there'll have to be flaggers and a detour route. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is a very preliminary. I shouldn't say this. This is pretty much close to the cost we're expecting. Is about $7.5 million for the whole project. Again, as I mentioned before, we have a couple of sources of funding. Actually, there's more than two. There's probably four altogether. We have ecology funding that we're looking at, and that's the purpose of this meeting tonight. But we also have USDA rural development funding. In fact, that's probably going to be our primary source of funding. We also have funding from Commerce. We also have some funds being included from the county and from the port. And I believe there's one other source. I don't recall offhand what that is. So anyway, so we are putting together the funding chest for the project, and it looks like we're going to be fairly successful with that. Next slide, please.
Mr. Rizzatello has a question or input.
Oh, I was going to say, I believe Brian Carlton is called in, if you could unmute him. But I would just say, while this presentation is looking at from the perspective of if we were doing this with ecology primarily, we have put in the grant application at USDA. It's past state office approval. We're away the national office approval. The preliminary offer that the USDA officials have given us that they're awaiting final sign off on from national office would entail around a 45% grant on this. So impacts to the rate could look very different if the USDA grant loan, as has been presented to us, comes through. Brian, do you have more to add to that?
Sure. Sorry for coming on late. I was struggling to get connected. Yeah, in all, there's basically 6 different funding options. And really, when it comes right down to it, the best alternative for the city is the USDA money because of the high grant amount currently at 45%. There is other options if we need them, but based on our analysis and my cash flow projections, the USDA number, is the best deal to go. And of course, we're still waiting to hear back an offer from USDA, and I'm emailing them weekly to get an update. And currently, it's held in the federal office. It was above the dollar amount that the regional USDA was able to approve, so it had to go to the federal for approval. So that's where it's sitting now. The other options are still there if USDA doesn't come through, but that's what we're waiting to hear.
Yeah, and I should clarify too that this ecology loan is a final funding list that they're taking to the legislature that ecology staff has prepared. It has not been finalized either, though they anticipate that will occur. So. Okay, this slide here, and Brian, feel free to jump in as necessary. This slide here attempts to provide a picture of what some of the rate impacts might be. It's really up in the air depending upon what our actual funding will actually be. If we get that 40% grant principal forgiveness from USDA, it's going to change the picture substantially. This is just based on a simple projection of how much the cost of the project will be against our current revenues. And go ahead, yeah. So this is the initial numbers. Brian, did you want to comment on these? Do they look close or?
Well, they're done according to the rate model that was designed in 2017, And they projected out based on what the capital requirements were back, I believe, in 2016. So things have changed since then. And the big investment that shows that rate increase in 2027 at 14%, that's an investment that shows in the model at, it's approximately $4 million. So that substantially increased that rate for a couple years later. Why the delay? Probably because the project was estimated to go out over a certain number of years and the rate increase wouldn't take place until 2027. The rest of the investment throughout those years in the model is about $500,000 a year in investments in capital throughout the year, from the model shows from 2019 to 2026. So those rates hold through for that amount of investment. So there is increases built into the model, but it's one of Finance Department's objectives here in the short order is to redo that model with assumptions that we have now. So that'll be done in before the next council meeting.
Thank you. And that's pretty much all we have. I think that's the last slide. Lisa, if you want to try one more. I'm sorry. I just did want to mention that there may be some relief and rate increase also over time, because there will be connection fees by the folks connecting up to that line. And so we're going to recoup a lot of that money, but it's going to take a while. So just want to mention that as well. That's part of the picture. Okay, thank you. And that concludes what we had for our public meeting discussion. And Lisa, I guess at this time, you folks will entertain questions or input from the public.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. So I'm going to go through council members for questions and comments in order. Mr. Bobbitt, do you have any questions or comments?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cleveland?
Not at this time, but I do appreciate all the work that's gone into this and exploring funding options that a little less hard on us.
Yep. Mr. Peterson?
I think the only thing I would add is it was a tail end comments there. As far as fees, I guess I was under the impression that there would be more of an offset charge from developers. And I understand the individual connection fees perhaps with residential, but is it still the thinking that large commercial development, if there is that, how much would it bear of that $7 million? Or what are the thoughts on that?
I mean, here's the thing. Eventually, it will bear a good lion's share majority of it. So it takes time. Once we build it, we aren't going to have that development just sprout out of the ground the first year. So I mean, if I were to do an approximate guesstimate, I would say new development to old development, probably around a 60-40 split. The thing is that there still is the substantial amount that, in essence, in a way, the city has to front, because keep in mind that lift station that's undersized that we're replacing, that conveys wastewater all the way from Community Bank on Commercial Drive, and it covers Country Estates, all Scenic View Hill, all of those areas. So I mean, a good proportion of it will be covered by new development, but there still is a portion that has existing residents you need to bear because it's fixing an existing problem.
So is the 2% after that 2027, is that the calculation or realization of an offset from those developers into that time frame, or?
Brian, would you answer?
I haven't digged into the model enough to know if they made that assumption in the model. It's something, it's a reasonable question, and you would think they would take that into account. I know when we were doing the financial workup for the USDA loan application, they have a financial model online that we plugged all our numbers into, and it did project out an increase in the charges to the project for connection fees. Those were taken into account in their financial analysis to see if our cash flow was, you know, sufficient to make our loan payments.
No. And then I'll be, one last quick question. Is there the potential, the timing, is there potential to do earlier, smaller increases and to bank that away? Or is it something where you have to have the increases in place when the at the end of the construction or at the end of the cost of acquiring that?
That's a really good question. And obviously their model takes it as a one-year hit to try to compensate for the large capital investment. That was their assumptions in the model. Like when I look at the model, I'm basically going to redo it. And I wouldn't make that same assumption because really, you know, you're supposed to start saving now in order to make a capital investment in, you know, 5 to 10 years. So the logical thing is to do is start saving.
Yep. Yep.
But that was not designed into this model. And
yeah. Right. And
unfortunately, I wasn't here at the time they did the model to debate that.
Okay. Well, food for thought, I guess. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, but we have the potential. I mean, it's baked in, but we have the potential to redirect that, obviously. And you're saying you will be doing that when you reprocess that model?
Yes, I'll rebuild the model with current assumptions.
Yeah. No. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Okay. Ms. Nyhagen.
No comments, but thank you so much for that. It was very well presented. Thank you.
Ms. Selby.
I have one comment and two questions. My comment is, as I recall, when that model was put together, the estimates for the sewage treatment plant ranged about, there was about a 10 million difference in the ranges for the estimate because we had no idea what it was going to cost. Mm-hmm. So we kind of didn't worry too much about it on the theory that we were going to be redoing the model approximately every 3 to 4 years. And then when we had more data, which would be like now, we would, you know, fix that. So my question about that is, where are we? Is it time to redo the model? We were doing like water 1 year, sewer 1 year, take a break 1 year, I think.
Yes, it's every 3 years, and this is the year it was to be redone.
Okay.
It went from 17 to 2020. So we need to redo the model to estimate our rate progression for the next 3 years, starting in 2021.
And are you actually planning to do that yourself rather than the contractor? Because in the past we had a contractor.
No, talking with Mike and his confidence in my ability with spreadsheets, we're confident that I can handle redoing it.
Awesome. I wasn't trying to question your ability, but more your time. My other question.
Yeah, well, we'll get it done. Put it that way. Whatever it takes.
And I just wanted to add with the models, what we're aiming for is to basically have the water, wastewater, and storm recalibrated by the September workshop. So it has the most recent information in it. And one sidebar, you are correct on the assumption with the wastewater treatment plant. When we did this from a couple of years back, they had a guesstimate of north of 30 million. However, the price on that, because of some efficiencies, went down to 20 million. But then on the other hand, back then, we thought the Southwest Sewer trunk line was going to be about 5.5, but then as additional analysis was done at it, you now see the 7.5 million price tag. So the fiscal picture moved in both directions.
Yeah, that's why we have to redo it every 3 years.
Yeah.
And then my second question is about the farmland. And I saw that we had some prime farmland and farmland of statewide significance, although it was very small amounts. Do we have to do any mitigation for that?
I'm not aware of any that we need to do. Apparently, based on the conclusion of the, yeah, I haven't seen anything that would require anything.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and if I can just add one thing, the rate models was part of my objectives this year, so I have to get them done.
Okay. Ms. Sherman.
No additional comments.
Thank you. Mr. Trope?
No additional comments. Good job, Mr. Gordon and Mr. Crowe.
Okay. Before moving on, is there any other question or comment? Okay, at this time, I'd like to open the floor for public comment. Did anyone submit a comment or arrange to speak?
I have not had any submissions for this item, no.
Okay, great, thank you. So then moving on to our action items. The first item is a Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Board.
This is Councilmember Cleveland. I believe we need a motion to close the public hearing, do we not?
It was public comment.
Oh,
not
public comment. Oh, okay. My bad, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Not a public hearing.
I appreciate the check-ins. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to the Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Board. Mr. Rizzatello or Chief Tamaris, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. Concept behind this, I mean, we started working on this a couple of years ago, but then other projects occurred, but really just get everything. Now's the time to get this on the docket and create this board. So basically it would have 7 individuals of 3-year term. And then under powers and duties, you'd see that they'd provide advice and recommendations to the mayor and council about being a welcoming city. As you may recall, there was a resolution declaring that we are a welcoming city. It was adopted by council about 3 years ago, if memory serves me correct. Also recommending strategies for public engagement, removing barriers and increasing inclusion. Also advising the city on strengthening human rights, values, and principles, and things of that sort. I worked with a very similar board when I was on staff at City of Beaverton, Oregon. So a lot of this code was borrowed from Beaverton, Oregon. In quite a few cities around the area are creating or already have in operation similar advisory commissions, such as Kennewick and Pasco. And with that, Chief Tamaris, do you have additional comments?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Rizzatello. I just want to make the comment that this board will help ensure that every voice in our community is heard. And it'll also be an early warning system that if we do have issues that we can address it immediately. So I think it's a great thing for our community and I wish we'd done it earlier.
Here, I agree on that. Ms. Colwell, anything that you wanted to share?
No, I hope to be able to participate, not as a board member, but as part of the community. I think I could provide some perspective on the criminal justice system and how it relates to our community.
Thank you. And I would like just to comment that, as Chief Tamaris said, he would have wished that we would have started it sooner, but I am grateful that we have this opportunity to start it now and be at the head of many of the communities in our area and be a great example. So I'm going to go through the council members for questions or comments. Mr. Bobbitt.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Mr. Cleveland.
No comment at this time, other than great idea. I'm glad we're doing it.
Mr. Peterson.
No, at this time, thank you.
Ms. Nyhagen.
None at this time. Thank you, guys.
Ms. Selby.
I just wanted to say I really appreciate this. And secondly, as I recall, we're having the youth committee like talk to this committee or report to this committee once a year, so that we'll have that group of people we'll have a voice as well, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Ms. Sherman.
No additional comments. I'm excited to have this though. Thank you.
Great. And Mr. Choate.
I'm also very excited to see this happen. And I think having Mr. Pons on this, you start out with the right people. So good job.
Fabulous. Okay, if anybody has any additional comments or questions, please raise your hand button. Ms. Selby.
I would like to move that we approve ordinance number 20-012, which adds 2.60 Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Board to the College Place Municipal Code.
Thank you. Mr. Bobbitt.
I would like to second the motion.
Thank you. Are there any other additional comments? All right. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? All right. It's unanimous. The ayes have it. The motion is passed. Thank you very much. It's a great day for our city. Okay, Mr. Rizzatello, you're going to channel your Mr. Hartwig?
Yeah. So this project has been in a capital facility plan for 2 years. The allocation from last year was carried forward to this year, plus some additional work. And this is to do sewer lining. To my knowledge, I believe this is first utilization of it in the city here, I believe. Basically, what it is in a nutshell is it eliminates the need to dig a trench to basically redo a wastewater sewer line. You basically put this like polyurethane tube in a pipe, and then you heat it up and cook it, and it inflates, and you basically cook a new pipe inside the pipe. When I worked in public works in the city of Urbana, Illinois, about 12 years ago, we were doing this, and it's just a very cost-effective way of rehabbing wastewater lines, because then you basically connect the rehab area from manhole, and then cut in back in the services, and it eliminates the need to trench. The areas that we're doing this year, if you all shall approve this, is basically the Scenic View, Mountain View Hill area, because there's some wastewater lines in pretty bad shape in the alleys over there, and then also some sewer line along the 10th Street and Puff Lane area. They have some inflow and intrusion problems with it. You can see the bids there. Cheapest bid was north of $230,000, and the motion recommendation is they have the additional 10% as we usually do for contingency. And that does fall within the budget amount that we had for this, because we have $180,000 in the 2020 budget plus the carryover from 19 for a grand total of $280,000. So this project is under budget. So with that, that's a good synopsis of the project.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Rizzatello. Councilmember Bobbitt, do you have any questions or comments?
I'm looking over the documentation right now. No questions.
Okay. Mr. Cleveland?
None other than I'm glad we're under budget.
Mr. Peterson.
No, I would just add, I may be wrong. I think we've done this previous in the city. It was a short stretch, and if I remember correctly, it was very successful then. Yeah.
Ms. Nyhagen?
Could I make the motion?
When we're still open for comments and questions.
No comments.
Okay. Ms. Selby?
I just want to say this is a great technology and I absolutely support this.
Excellent. Ms. Sherman?
I'll echo Lauren. I thought that we did this somewhere up by Whitman Drive or something. But yeah, I remember at least us talking about it and it sounded pretty cool back then. I'm glad we're doing it now too.
Mr. Trope?
Same thing as Ms. Selby said. I have seen this done in the past. I think it's a great way to remediate aging infrastructure. So I'm all in favor.
I'm looking forward to seeing it in action.
It's super funny.
Okay, not in action, getting done.
There you go.
Let me correct this. Okay, Mr. Bobbitt, did you have any questions or comments now? No? Okay. Ms. Nyhagen, would you like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to award the sewer lining contract to the Iron Horse LLC for an amount not to exceed $257,087.
Thank
Just
you.
Councilmember Cleveland, I will second.
Okay. All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. The motion is passed. Okay, Mr. Rickard will present the next item regarding the 75th anniversary book.
Thank you. Yes. So in the 2020 budget, there was money set aside to write a book about the 75th anniversary of the incorporation of the city of College Place, which will take place in January of 2021. So we're working this through the Historic Preservation Commission. Mike Denny has agreed to be the author, and we're working through a contract right now with him, which we will not be bringing forward to you because it's in the amount that Mike can approve. But very excited to have him on board. I'm sure you all have read his columns in the UB. He is
wonderful.
He is a fountain. He has so much knowledge about the Valley and College Place in particular. And then we've got Stanley Green on the commission, who's went to Wallowa University and he's got a long family history here. Gary Peterson is on the commission, also got a long family history here and a wealth of knowledge about College Place. Terry Gottschall, who is a retired history professor from the Wallowa University, is going to be very helpful to be involved in it. And then Ed Kontz, who's a resident of the area, is also going to be involved. There's going to be primarily two commissioners that are going to advise Gary Peterson as he writes the book. That'll be Terry Gottschall and Gary Peterson. The plan is that before our regularly scheduled planning commission meetings, which are on the third Thursday of the month at 4 p.m., we will 30 minutes before that meeting, we'll have a work session specifically about the book. So we'll have it recorded. So that'll be kind of neat to look back upon after the book's completed, to see the discussions of how they came about to write the book. So I'm excited about this. We got two proposals from publishing companies. Dawning Company Publishing is out of the Midwest. They were actually the ones that rang the bell last year and said, hey, are you aware that you're coming up on your 75th anniversary? So I'd like to thank them for that. But we also got another proposal from Keoki. They're out of Northern Idaho. They both had great proposals, were very comparable in many areas, but with Keoki, we'll get a full color book, which doesn't mean there won't be black and white photos in it, but there's a difference between a full color black and white versus just a black and white. The images don't turn out as sharp and crisp, and there, believe it or not, there is color in a black and white, old black and white photo. So that'll be nice. And their just overall price was more competitive. Mr. Denny has also worked with Keoki through 3 other books that he's worked on. So there's some experience there with the company, and he's been happy with them as an author. So the amount that I'm asking for is for an amount not to exceed $25,121. You'll know that if anybody did the math, it didn't quite add up. That's because we're not going to be utilizing Keoki to do any of the editing. Mike Denny has an editor that he works with, and we'll pay them directly. So, so with that, are there any questions?
All right, Mr. Bobbitt, any questions?
No question. I think it's wonderful we're doing this.
Yeah. Mr. Cleveland.
No questions, but I hope the copies become available at the local library.
Absolutely. Mr. Peterson.
No questions. Excited and fully support this.
Ms. Nyhagen.
Oh, I support it. Mike Denny's wonderful in Terriamont. I think it's going to be a great book.
Ms. Sherman. Oh, excuse me, Ms. Selby.
I'm excited about this. Are we planning to give copies away, or will we be selling them? And if we're selling some of them, what are we thinking of selling it for?
We haven't set a price. We're purchasing 3,000 books, but we do plan to sell them. I'm sure we will be giving away copies to, you know, the university and our local library, and, you know, I'm sure there'll be a list of people who want to give out, the council members,
yeah.
You know. The other nice thing about this proposal is the additional cost to purchase in 100 book increments is $3.92 a book. So if we burn through the 3,000 in the first year, which we very well may, I mean, there's a lot of alum that will be interested in it. Mike's experience, Mike Denny's experience with selling books about the region is that there's a lot of people out there interested in Eastern Washington.
Yes.
So we will probably end up purchasing more at a later date.
Thank you. Now, if you're like a textbook publisher, you would now charge $250 a copy.
Oh, gosh. Ms. Sherman.
I was so excited to see the list of names of people involved on this. I think it's going to turn out really, really well. I'm really excited for it. Can we get it before Christmas so that I can be done with my shopping though? That would be amazing.
We were really hoping to get it done before Christmas, but things just snowballed with the COVID. Mike Denny's going to work really hard to have it done, his part done in 4 months. So that's not going to leave a lot of time for the publishing company to get it out before the 25th.
All right, so Christmas 21 is taken care of. Got it.
Right.
Mr. Trope.
A quick question: will it be available virtually for people who research and that sort of thing?
Yeah, that is an option that Keoki offers. It's not part of this proposal, but we can talk to them about that, about getting it on like Amazon and you know, regionally in some of the local bookstores and stuff. That is an option.
Or even on the website, something like that. No other comment.
Well, I'd like to know when the photo shoot is for the city council so they can get a little shout out in the book as a city council during the 75th year. All right. So, Mr. Trope, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I would. I'd like to make a motion to authorize city administrators sign a proposal with Keoki Books to act as the publishing company for the upcoming book of the history of the city of College Place in honor of its 75th year of incorporation in the amount of $22,838 with a not to exceed amount of $25,121.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Sherman.
I'll second.
Great. Any other items for discussion? Raise your hand. All right. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, unanimous. The ayes have it. The motion is passed. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Ritter.
you.
That's exciting. Okay. So Mike and I will present the next item regarding flags at half-staff for COVID-19 victims. Lisa, are we to read the entire thing? Okay, let me open it up a little bit bigger. Okay. City of College Place resolution ordering flags be flown at half-staff on each Monday for the duration of the COVID-19 city emergency declaration as declared in resolution number 20-009 and 20-009.1 and resolution number 20-009.2. On this day, July 14th, 2020, whereas COVID, a respiratory disease that can result in serious illness or death, is caused by the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which is a new strain of coronavirus that has not been previously identified in humans and can easily spread from person to person. And whereas the CDC identifies a potential health threat by COVID-19, both globally and in the United States as high, and has advised that person-to-person spread of COVID-19 will continue to occur globally, including within the United States. And whereas
Mayor Hernandez has frozen.
Should we continue reading it?
We can read it.
Want me to continue reading it or?
Oh, she's back.
Oh, okay, good.
You froze
uh-oh,
after.
really? Okay. Right after where?
Whereas the number of people.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to start as of the evening of July 8th, 2020 is 547,931 worldwide, 131,65 in the United States, and 1,384 of our fellow citizens in the state of Washington. And whereas COVID-19 victims died separated from their loved ones due to quarantine requirements, and whereas although no residents in the city have died, 3 residents of Walla Walla County have passed away due to COVID-19, as we are part of the state of Washington, United States, and world. And whereas more people have died from the virus than in many disasters where we have lowered flags in respect. And whereas although the deaths are spread out in time and place, they are related by the virus and the increasing ways in which we are all interconnected. And now, therefore, I, Norma L. Hernandez, Mayor, declares as the following. Section 1, flags shall be put on half-staff each Monday in memory of the victims of the COVID-19 pandemic until the city is no longer in state of emergency under resolution number 20-009.1 or any extensions thereof. It's passed by the mayor and city council of the city of College Place, Washington on this 14th day of July, 2020. Mr. Bobbitt, do you have any questions?
Yes, being a pathfinder in this city and being taught respect for our flag, and I see this as a special honor to those who have died, but I also see cases where our flag is flung at half mast way too long during the year. Those are just thoughts. I have to formulate my opinion here. Is this for the whole day of Monday, or is this for a certain set time?
It's set for every Monday.
For the full day?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Cleveland,
No comments at this time.
Mr. Peterson,
No comments.
Ms. Nyhagen,
Oh, I love our flag. It's wonderful.
Ms. Selby.
I really appreciate this because it feels like, although we wear masks, etc., so many people have died and we're not really recognizing it. So I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate the writing of this. I think it was very beautifully written. So thank you.
Ms. Sherman,
No additional comments.
Mr. Trope.
Normally, I would be totally on Jerry's side on this, and I think that was my initial response, but haven't had the time to think about it. I think this is an ongoing threat to our community. It's increasing presently, so I'm all in favor of this.
Thank you. Please use your buttons to raise your hand if you have any additional questions or comments. Okay, seeing none, is there a motion? Ms. Selby?
I would like to move that we approve resolution number 20-009.2, which orders flags to be flown at half-staff on each Monday for the duration of the COVID-19 city emergency.
Okay, great, thank you. Mr. Bobbitt, you have your hand raised?
Yes, I was trying to raise it before you went to a motion, but I'm going to second that motion.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Okay, see none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, the vote is unanimous. The ayes have it. The motion is passed. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, you, in your packet, you also have 2 administrative reports. So Mr. Gordon will present the Utilities and Transportation Advisory Commission's recommendations.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Back in February 13th of this year, the UTAC, our Utilities and Transportation Advisory Commission, was asked to consider and provide a recommendation regarding whether or not we should post 25-mile-per-hour speed limits throughout the city, maybe in particular locations. It's an issue that comes up from time to time, and people often observe speeding, and I say we should have a speed limit here or whatever, and it's a reasonable inquiry. So we asked the UTAC to take a look at that, and they came back with a recommendation. After reviewing the RCW, which maybe I should go into that a little bit, the RCW already mandates speed limits throughout the state at 25 miles per hour on city and town streets, 50 miles an hour on county roads, and 60 miles an hour on state highways. Now you can change those with a traffic study or a traffic investigation, after which you can make a change. So there is a way to do that, but after discussing it and thinking about it and the extra costs associated with additional speed limit signs and the fact that all of our streets that aren't signed in the town are actually 25-mile-per-hour zones, the commission decided to recommend against recommend not to post additional 25-mile-per-hour signs throughout the city. So just want to let you know kind of where they came down. It is obviously speed limits are a concern, but it is a mandate and it is statewide, and absent a traffic investigation, those speed limits are there whether or not they're posted.
All right, thank you. For question and comments, Mr. Bobbitt,
Not at this time.
Mr. Cleveland,
No comment.
Mr. Peterson,
No comment.
Ms. Nyhagen,
No comment.
Ms. Selby,
No comment.
Ms. Sherman.
I have a comment or a question. I think conversations that I had with some of the staff may have been part of the reason that this went to the UTAC. And I guess one of the questions that had come up was with officers enforcing traffic laws or traffic speeds when they change, like for instance, when people turn off of Myra Road onto commercial is 25, Myra is 35 ish. And so I'm not sure, I understand the RCW, and I think that was my first comment back was, well, the city speed limits are 25, but is that posted anywhere? Is that supposed to be posted anywhere that says, you know, unless otherwise posted, speed limits are 25? Or, you know, how does that work when you pull someone over going 37 or 40 in a 25 and they say, well, there's no sign? I mean, I don't know what that conversation's like. Just want to, I guess, have some clarification on that, or if we're missing anything. Or not.
Mr. Gordon?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any requirement to post that. And I don't know if Chief Tamaris is still on, but he might want to respond to that because they're the folks that are out in the field actually enforcing it.
Right, so it is common language that unless posted, the speed limit is 25 miles per hour. That's in RCW. It's one of the questions on your driver's ed test. It's pretty well common. I have seen cities, I've gone into communities where as you enter town, they'll have a sign that says 25 miles per hour unless posted differently. I've seen those things, but I think it's a courtesy thing that people have done. It's not a requirement. The main thoroughfare is 12th Street, Myra, Rose, College Ave is very well marked. So I don't think this is as big a deal as maybe we're thinking here. So all the main thoroughfares are well marked.
Okay.
Good question, though. Not a bad courtesy to post them in when you enter the towns, though. Mr. Trope.
I'm on the UTAC. That was an extensive review of that report. If any of you guys are interested, it's a neat report to read. They give projections out to 2040. I think the committee made the right recommendations.
Great, thank you. If there's any other questions or comments, please raise your virtual hand. Okay, I don't see any. We're going to move on to Chief Tamaris to present the creation of an ordinance for unlawful discharging of guns and other firearms in the city.
Okay, well, thank you, Mayor. So as our city has become more densely populated, we are only 4 square miles, less than 4 square miles. We thought it would be appropriate to have this ordinance along the lines of many cities our size or bigger. So this would restrict the discharging of guns or firearms within the city limits. It's to prevent stray rounds from striking persons or property, and also to promote public safety. I don't know if Ree would like to comment.
I haven't had a chance to review what the chief has provided to me, but this is a pretty standard regulation throughout the cities in Washington state. So if anyone has any specific questions, diving into the right to bear arms and all the complicated laws can take all night. But if anyone has any questions or concerns, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, so we're going to go for questions or comments. Mr. Bobbitt?
But on this topic at this time, I do have a comment after we're done with this.
Okay. Mr. Cleveland?
I have a question, I guess. How would this ordinance affect accidental discharge of firearms? I had a neighbor unfortunately pass away recently due to an accidental discharge of a firearm. And I guess I wouldn't want this ordinance to, on top of tragedy, be rubbing someone's nose in the accidental discharge. So that's my question.
And I can answer that if you want me to take that. So there's a bunch of different ways that someone can be culpable for a crime or it be deemed not a crime. And so you'd have to look on a case by case specific. But basically the person would have to have intent to do harm or behave in such a way that was so reckless, a reasonable person would deem that they should not have behaved that way. So if it's an accident, it's an accident. But in regards to the city in specific, I assume that we'll have some sort of intent language in there. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. And I'm honestly surprised that we didn't have an ordinance against discharging firearms in the city in the first place.
Mr. Peterson?
Yeah, I'd echo that. I'm sitting here shocked and amazed that this ordinance is already in place. Makes me wonder what other types of activities do not have ordinances that govern that behavior. But yeah, amazing and interesting.
Well, and if I may chime in, a lot of these ordinances, then the chief, I think will agree with me, are more of a statement on how we want our community to behave. The chances of actually citing someone with a crime should be pretty low, but it sets a standard for our behavior. So
previous to this, I could take a long rifle in my backyard and do target practice?
It would depend on the situation. If you're placing others at risk, no, you can't. And arguably, shooting a rifle in your backyard is always going to place someone at risk. So.
Okay.
Thank you. There are other charges like reckless endangerment and those types of violations that you could impose, if there's some negligence involved. But with what Ms. Colwell had mentioned, we're just trying to increase public safety and bring awareness to, we do not want people shooting in our city. And as she said, I mean, there's a lot of questions that come out of these types of things. Yes, you can still carry, concealed weapons permits. You can still have your guns. You can still protect yourself. You're not going to be charged with a crime if you are legally discharging your weapon. So this is really preserved for gross negligence, really.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ms. Nyhagen.
Well, I like it, and I wish something would be done also about the fireworks. I heard on July 4th, I actually heard a couple of guns go off, so I'm going to appreciate this very much.
Ms. Selby?
No comment.
Ms. Sherman?
No comments.
Mr. Trope?
No comment.
Okay. Please raise your hand. Use your button to raise your hand if you have any other questions or comments on this topic. Okay. Thank you very much, Chief Tamaris. Okay. Mr. Bobbitt, you had something you wanted to discuss?
Yes, I hate to say this, but this is flying the flag at half-mast. Apparently, we passed a resolution that does not meet proper flag etiquette. It says here that, question, can the mayor order the flag to be half-staff? Answer, no. Only the president of the United States or the governor of the state can order a flag to be flown half-mast. I think that was kind of the wondering, is this per proper etiquette that I had originally. I love the intent of it. I love the idea of doing it to support those who have suffered from COVID, those who have died from COVID, but I don't think it's following proper etiquette for our national symbol.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Ms. Selby.
I understand that the flag code is about etiquette rather than, law. And I do respect the flag code and hate to see people leaving their flags out overnight or in the rain or whatever. But I have seen on a number of occasions mayors put the flag at half-mast for for their community. So I'm comfortable with that, but not everybody may be.
Thank you. Mr. Trout? You're on mute, Mr. Trout.
Sorry about that. I also looked this up, and I think there's plenty of precedent that localities have done this.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
you know, that was my comment earlier when I talked about that. There's even a precedent with COVID-19.
If there's any other questions or comments on this, please raise your virtual hand. Okay, thank you all very much for that.
Give us time to raise our hand.
Okay, Mr. Bobbitt?
Yes, well, I look at our flag as a national symbol. I do not take it lightly. I want to respect our flag with the utmost care and concern. But if every community starts taking it into their hand to do things that aren't, quote, etiquette or following etiquette, I have a concern about that, where our flag, you know, what does it really mean? You know, it is a emblem of our nation, not just our city or our state, but our nation. And I think we need to abide by the etiquette as much as possible. As much as I like to do it for every thing I am concerned and care about. And when our president orders it, do it.
Well, I thank you for that, I do. But I don't think there's any disrespect in lowering the flag to honor Americans who have passed away from this illness and the American families that are suffering due to consequences of it or the loss of loved ones. I completely respect and understand what you're saying, but as Americans, I think they merit acknowledgement as well of what they're dealing with and what they have dealt with. Ms. Caldwell?
Go ahead.
Ms. Caldwell, were you raising your hand?
I don't want to get in the middle of whether it's right or wrong. This is just a purely legal aspect. I don't think that there is, I haven't dug into it, but an enforcement portion of the federal code. But I would think that if there were any opposition or any action taken against the city for flying at half-staff, that the city, the mayor would have a constitutional right to speak that way. One example is the flags that are used that aren't the original colors that law enforcement officers display and use. So it's one of those where if it's accepted in the community, I do believe the city would have a constitutional right to speak by lowering the flag.
Thank you for that legal assistance.
Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Bobbitt and then Ms. Selby.
No, I appreciate that comment. You know, it's just, I can see both sides of this.
Absolutely, absolutely. Ms. Selby.
I can also see both sides of it. I also think that unless we have a motion to revoke that resolution, that the decision has been made and I mean, I appreciate the additional information that you brought forward, but I don't think additional discussion would be helpful at this point.
Thank you. Mr. Cleveland?
If I'm remembering correctly, our parliamentary procedure allows for a member of the winning party of a vote to call for a revote if that is something that any individuals that voted wish to do, the winning team.
Thank you for that information. Seeing no other hands raised for discussion or comment, I'm going to move on. There are no informational packets in your reports this month. Are there any other business for good of the order? All right, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Councilmember Peterson, so move.
Great, thank you. Is
Second.
there? Great, thank you. If there are no objections, the meeting is adjourned at, let's see, what time do I have?
8:25.
8:25 p.m. Thank
Stay
you.
safe.
Appreciate the discussions. Thank you.
Stay healthy.
Yes.